You know, there are places out there in the deep, untamed woods of America, places where the shadows seem to go on forever, where the silence is just a little too heavy. We try to tell ourselves, it's just trees, it's just the wilderness. But what if those old stories are more than just stories? What if that rustling you hear in the bushes isn't some harmless animal, but something else? Something the ancient tales warned us about? They say some forests are lost for a good reason, guarded by things that stretch the limits of belief. This is folklore so chilling it can still, to this very day, make your blood run cold and keep even the bravest souls from wandering too far. America. It's a land of enormous wilderness, forests that seem to stretch into infinity, mountains that scrape the sky, and swamps that hold their secrets tight. For centuries, these wild places haven't just been home to all sorts of animals and plants. They've also cooked up a different kind of inhabitant, the creatures of folklore. These aren't the critters you read about in science books. Oh no, these are beings born from the hushed whispers of indigenous peoples, the spooky campfire tales of pioneers, and that deep-seated human fear of what might be lurking just beyond the firelight. Tonight, we're heading into these lost woods. But forget the hiking boots and trail maps. We're going armed with the shiver-inducing stories passed down through generations. We're going to explore the bone-chilling folklore of creatures said to stalk these shadowy depths. Legends and campfire tales that paint these forests as hunting grounds for the truly unbelievable. These are the stories designed to send a chill right down your spine, to make you think twice before you step off that well-worn path. Maybe they'll even convince you to stay out of certain dark corners of the American wilderness for good. Think about it. Dense, isolated woods have always stirred up a sense of the unknown, haven't they? They're the perfect backdrop for stories of hauntings, monsters, and things that just can't be explained. This folklore, it often echoes the worries and hopes of folks living on the frontier, with the forest being a powerful symbol of both danger and unexplored possibility. Over time, storytelling traditions in America have morphed real places into legendary landscapes, where any shadow could hide a ghost, a monster, or a soul that's lost its way. So get ready. We're about to delve into the very heart of American forest monster folklore. Our first stop? The coastal forests of North Carolina. This land is soaked in one of America's oldest, most haunting mysteries, the lost colony of Roanoke. Back in 1587, a whole group of English settlers just vanished. No definitive trace left behind, only that cryptic word Croton carved into a post. Among these lost souls was Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. Now, historians can debate all day about what happened to those colonists, but folklore? It offers a much more ethereal and, frankly, far more unsettling explanation for Virginia's fate. According to the legend that just won't die, Virginia Dare didn't simply die or blend in with local tribes. Nope, she was transformed through some powerful and maybe heartbroken magic. The common thread in these tales is that after the colony disappeared, Virginia was adopted and raised by local Native American tribes, sometimes called Winona. She grew into a young woman of incredible beauty, catching the eye of many, including a Native American shaman or witch doctor, often named Chico in the stories. When Virginia turned him down, or chose someone else, his pride, or maybe his unrequited love, twisted itself into a curse. He used his strong magic to change her, not into some hideous beast, but into a creature of unsettling beauty, a snow white doe. Can you just picture it? A young woman, the symbol of a brand new world, suddenly feeling her body shift, her humanity melting away, replaced by the silent, sleek grace of a wild deer. This white doe, they say, was like no other. She moved with an almost supernatural elegance, her coat flawless, her eyes holding a deep sadness and a strange, knowing light. For years, she was seen roaming the forests and shores of Roanoke Island and the nearby mainland, a ghostly figure that would appear and then vanish like mist. Some stories say she'd often stare out at the sea, as if she was waiting for her grandfather, Governor John White, to return. He'd sailed to England for supplies, only to come back and find his colony gone. But the legend doesn't stop with her transformation. There's usually a tragic chase involved. Okisco, a young brave who had truly loved Virginia, or Winona, was devastated by what happened to her. Desperate to get her back, he went to see a rival medicine man, Winona. Winona gave him a magic arrow, sometimes tipped with oyster shell or pearl, that could reverse the spell if it hit the doe's heart. At the same time, the vengeful shaman, Chico, or sometimes other hunters, were also after the White Doe, maybe to possess her unique form or to finally snuff out the life he couldn't control. One version even says another suitor, perhaps Wanchese, a historical figure who had turned against the English colonists, armed with a silver arrow given by the jealous Chico, hunted her too. The end of this sad story often shows a fateful hunt. In some versions, both Okisko's magic arrow, meant to save her, and another arrow, maybe that silver one meant to kill, hit the White Doe at the exact same moment. For just a fleeting second as the mist clears, or as she lies on the forest floor, Virginia Dare turns back into her human form, only to die in the arms of her beloved Okisko, a victim of tangled love, jealousy, and powerful magic. Then, her body vanishes, and once again, a ghostly White Doe is seen leaping away into the deep woods, her spirit forever tied to that land. The White Doe of Roanoke is a really powerful piece of American folklore. She stands for the innocence lost with that vanished colony, the deep mystery of their disappearance, and the theme of transformation that you see so often in forest lore. The tale mixes historical people and events with supernatural stuff, creating a story that feels both ancient and incredibly present. Hunters and locals, even well into the 20th century, reported seeing fleeting glimpses of an unnaturally white deer in the forests of coastal North Carolina, one that would pop up suddenly in the dead of night and vanish with the morning mist always out of reach. Whether she's a beautiful, tragic spirit or just something born from our collective imagination, the White Doe is a haunting reminder that the American wilderness holds stories of profound loss and unsettling magic, secrets that the forest guards closely. The tale turns the landscape into a place where the supernatural is always just out of sight, a gentle, sorrowful guardian of a mystery that's centuries old. All right, now we head north, way up into the vast, freezing forests of the Great Lakes region, the northern United States and Canada, the traditional lands of the Algonquian-speaking peoples. Here, something far more terrifying is said to lurk. This isn't a creature of sad beauty. This is the Wendigo, a specter of unending hunger and horrifying power, born from the harshest winters, the deepest starvation, and the absolute darkest parts of human nature. The Wendigo, and you'll see it spelled different ways like Wendigo or Wetiko, is a malevolent being. It's often described as a towering, emaciated figure, so gaunt its bones practically poke through its dry, decaying skin. Some tales give it glowing eyes, long, yellowish fangs, an overly long tongue, and claws as sharp as razors. It can be 15 feet tall, yet despite being a walking skeleton, it's got immense strength and speed, moving like the winter wind through the frozen woods. Maybe the most disturbing part? Modern takes on it sometimes show it with stag-like antlers or a deer skull for a head, a creepy twist on its original, more human-like monstrous form, possibly influenced by European monster imagery. The roots of the Wendigo legend are deep in the very real threat of starvation during those brutal northern winters. The core of the legend is a grim warning against two of the biggest sins in these isolated communities: selfishness, especially hoarding food, and the ultimate taboo, cannibalism. According to many traditions, a person can turn into a Wendigo if they resort to eating human flesh to survive. Others say the Wendigo is an evil spirit that can possess people, driving them to commit such acts and corrupting their souls. Greed, too, can open that door. That insatiable desire for more, whether it's food or power, can make you vulnerable to the Wendigo spirit. Imagine a hunter, lost in a blizzard, days without food, that gnawing emptiness in his stomach just taking over his mind. He stumbles upon a fallen friend and, in a moment of sheer, desperate madness, does the unthinkable. It's said that the moment he tastes human flesh, a change starts, a spiritual and physical decay that twists him into something no longer human. He becomes a Wendigo, cursed to roam the forests with an eternal hunger that no amount of flesh can ever satisfy. In fact, some legends say that with every victim it eats, the Wendigo grows larger, and so its hunger also grows right along with it, making sure it's forever starving. The presence of a Wendigo is often signaled by an unnatural, biting cold, a feeling of absolute dread, or the sound of shrieking on the wind. It's a master of stealth, able to mimic human voices to lure its victims deeper and deeper into the woods. It's even said to control the weather, whipping up blizzards to confuse its prey. Those unfortunate souls suffering from Wendigo psychosis, a term historically used for a culture-bound syndrome, would show an intense craving for human flesh and a terrifying fear of becoming a cannibal themselves. Such individuals were often cast out or even executed. So great was the fear of this entity and what it stood for. Stories of the Wendigo aren't just spooky campfire tales. They're deeply ingrained moral lessons about community, about sharing, and about how important it is to resist your own darkest impulses, especially when times get incredibly tough. The fear of becoming a Wendigo was a powerful way to stop people from doing things that could tear a tribe apart. The creature is a physical manifestation of the spiritual price you pay for giving in to primal desperation. Encounters with the Wendigo? Almost always terrifying and often fatal. There's the infamous story of Swift Runner, a Cree trapper in Alberta, Canada, in the late 19th century. He murdered and ate his entire family during the winter of 1878, claiming he was possessed by a Wendigo spirit. He was tried and hanged, but his case is still one of the most notorious alleged instances of Wendigo psychosis. Then there was Jack Fiddler, an Ojibwe Cree shaman from the early 20th century, who claimed to have defeated 14 Wendigos in his lifetime. He was a renowned Wendigo hunter, sought out by communities who thought they were being plagued by the creature. His methods often involved euthanizing people believed to be in the final stages of turning into a Wendigo, or those already fully possessed. Fiddler himself was eventually arrested by Canadian authorities for murder, a stark example of the clash between traditional beliefs and colonial law. The Wendigo is more than just a monster. It's a symbol of winter's desolation, the madness of being utterly alone, and that constant human struggle against the savagery that can bubble up from extreme hardship. It represents the terrifying idea that the biggest monster might not be something out there, but something that can awaken inside us. Even now, the rustle of leaves in those cold northern forests, the howl of the winter wind, it can all bring back the chilling presence of this eternally hungry spirit. It's a stark reminder of the price of survival when all humanity is lost. Its legend has stuck around, a potent warning whispered on the frigid air, meant to keep you not just out of the woods, but away from the edge of your own darkest capabilities. Our next dive into the eerie takes us to the heart of North Carolina, to a place that isn't haunted by some creature of flesh and blood, but by an absence, a stubborn barrenness, and a chilling legend of a nightly visitor of ultimate evil. We're talking about the Devil's Tramping Ground. Tucked away in the piney woods of Chatham County, near Bear Creek, there's this mysterious, perfectly circular patch of earth, about 40 feet across, where almost nothing grows. For centuries, this spot has been the stuff of unnerving folklore, a place said to be so unholy that even plants just give up and refuse to take root. The legend is simple, stark, and deeply unsettling. This barren circle is where the devil himself comes to pace each and every night, walking in circles as he thinks about his evil deeds and cooks up new ways to bring misery to mankind. His constant, unholy footsteps are said to have made the soil sterile, burning away any life that dares to sprout. The story is an old one, apparently predating European settlers, with local indigenous tribes reportedly already knowing about this strange, lifeless circle and steering clear of it. What makes the Devil's Tramping Ground so compelling are the persistent stories of strange things happening there. It's not just that plants struggle to grow inside its boundary. They say any object left inside the circle overnight will be forcefully thrown out by morning. Dogs often refuse to even go near the ring, whining and backing away. Those brave, or maybe foolish, enough to try and spend the night within its border report a whole list of unsettling experiences. A heavy sense of dread and unease, strange lights, disembodied whispers, and creepy noises coming from the surrounding woods. Some have even claimed to wake up inexplicably outside the circle, with no clue how they got there. The fact that the circle stays barren is a huge part of its mystique. Generations of locals have seen it stay exactly the same. People have tried to plant hardy grasses or seeds in the circle, but they just wither and die. Even when the forest around it has been hit by fires, the circle itself reportedly remains untouched, as if it's protected or cursed by some unseen force. Of course, people have tried to come up with scientific explanations. One theory is that the soil is sterile because of a high salt content, maybe from a natural salt lick. The North Carolina Department of Agriculture did test the soil once and found it was unusually sterile due to high salt concentrations. Another idea is that it could be the site of an old distillery where spilled chemicals might have permanently wrecked the soil. Some have suggested it's a fairy ring caused by a fungus, though typical fairy rings often have lush growth at their center or edges, not complete barrenness. But none of these explanations really cover the perfectly circular shape, how long this has been going on, or all the other paranormal claims. One of the most famous stories involves a group of campers who decided to put the legend to the test. They pitched their tent right in the middle of the circle, weighing it down with heavy stones. All night long, they were tormented by shadowy figures moving just beyond their firelight and the sound of heavy footsteps circling their tent. When they woke up in the morning, they found their tent, heavy stones and all, had been moved several yards outside the ring. Another tale from the early 20th century tells of a local man who, skeptical of all the stories, tied his hunting dogs to stakes inside the circle before settling down to watch from a distance. As night fell, the dogs started howling and straining at their leashes, eventually breaking free and fleeing in absolute terror. The man never saw them again. The Devil's Tramping Ground is more than just some local oddity. It's like a primal scene from folklore. It taps into those ancient fears of cursed land, of places where the veil between worlds is thin and where evil things can literally leave their mark on the physical world. The image of the devil, pacing and plotting evil, is a powerful one. It turns a simple patch of dirt into a focal point of supernatural dread. It serves as a tangible sign of evil in a world that often prefers to believe such things are just metaphors. The stories reinforce the idea that some places are just inherently wrong and best left alone. Whether the cause is geological, chemical, or genuinely supernatural, the legend of the Devil's Tramping Ground lives on, a chilling invitation to wonder what infernal architect might be responsible for this perfectly empty circle in the woods. It's a place that whispers a warning. Tread carefully, because you might just be walking in the very footsteps of evil. The shadows in these forests run deep, and the stories they keep are darker still. If you're finding yourself drawn in by these chilling legends, and you don't want to miss our future trips into the unsettling and the unknown, why not take a second now to subscribe to our channel? Go on, hit that notification bell too, so you'll be the first to know when we dig up another tale designed to keep you right on the edge of your seat. And hey, if you've got a local legend from your own woods that you think the world needs to hear, share it in the comments below. We're always listening. From the ancient dread of diabolical footprints, we shift gears to a more modern mystery, a creature whose appearance in the mid-20th century absolutely terrified a community and became forever linked with tragedy: the Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. This isn't some tale whispered for centuries around campfires. This is a legend born from a concentrated burst of terrifying eyewitness accounts that kicked off in November 1966. The main hotspot for Mothman sightings was the TNT area, a sprawling, abandoned munitions plant from World War II, just outside Point Pleasant. This maze of decaying concrete bunkers, overgrown roads, and dark, empty buildings? It was an unsettlingly perfect stage for what was about to happen. On the night of November 15, 1966, two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving through the TNT area when they ran into something that just defied all logic. They reported seeing a large, winged creature standing about 6 to 7 feet tall. Its most terrifying feature? A pair of huge, glowing red eyes that seemed to be set in its chest, as it apparently didn't have a distinct head. Linda Scarberry described its wings as being like a bat's, with a wingspan of at least 10 feet. As the terrified couples floored it, the creature reportedly rose into the air, not by flapping its wings like a normal bird, but by gliding effortlessly, keeping pace with their car even as they hit speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. It let out high-pitched squeaking or screeching sounds. They drove in a panic to the Mason County Courthouse and told their story to Deputy Millard Halstead, who knew the Scarberrys to be reliable people and was visibly shaken by their genuine terror. And this wasn't just a one-off. In the days and weeks that followed, more reports flooded in. 2 volunteer firemen saw a large bird with red eyes. Newell Partridge, a resident of Salem, a bit of a ways from Point Pleasant, claimed that just days before the Scarberry sighting, his TV went haywire and his German Shepherd Bandit barked furiously at something outside before chasing it into the darkness, never to be seen again. Partridge himself saw 2 glowing red circles in the field where his dog had vanished. Other witnesses described a similar creature, tall, grayish, or dark, with massive wings and those unforgettable, hypnotic, crimson eyes. The name Mothman was actually coined by a newspaper editor, probably inspired by the Batman TV series that was popular then, and it just stuck. The sightings went on for about 13 months, from November 1966 to December 1967. During this time, the vibe in Point Pleasant grew thick with fear and unease. People became scared to go out at night. Alongside the Mothman sightings, there were reports of other weird stuff. Unusual lights in the sky, UFOs, TVs and radios acting up, strange metallic sounds, and even encounters with mysterious men in black, who supposedly warned witnesses to keep quiet. Researcher John Keel, who showed up in Point Pleasant to investigate, documented these bizarre events in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, suggesting the Mothman was part of a bigger, paranormal window event. The most chilling part of the Mothman legend is its perceived link to the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15, 1967. This bridge, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio, over the Ohio River, buckled and fell during rush hour traffic, killing 46 people. Some believe the Mothman was a harbinger of this disaster, its appearance a dire warning. Sightings of the creature reportedly stopped, or at least drastically dropped off, after the bridge collapse, leading many to think it had fulfilled its ominous purpose. Others connect the Mothman and the disaster to an old Shawnee curse supposedly placed on the area by Chief Cornstalk, who was murdered there in the 18th century. Skeptics often suggest misidentification of large birds, like an out-of-migration sandhill crane or a snowy owl, as an explanation for Mothman. A large snowy owl with a nearly 5-foot wingspan was indeed shot in the area around that time and is now displayed in the Mothman Museum. Those eerie red eyes could have been reflections from flashlights or headlights in animal eyes. The creepy environment of the TNT area, with its shadowy structures and history, could easily have played tricks on the mind. But regardless of what it really was, cryptid, alien, interdimensional being, misidentified bird, or mass hysteria, the Mothman has burned itself deep into American folklore. It represents a more modern kind of fear, not just of the wild, but of the unexplained, bizarre intrusion into everyday life, often linked to impending doom. The annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant and the Mothman Museum draw thousands of visitors, a testament to the legend's lasting power. Even today, reports of Mothman-like creatures pop up in other parts of the United States, notably in Chicago in recent years, hinting that this red-eyed watcher might not have vanished completely. The Mothman serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that appear as omens, their silent flights a prelude to unimaginable loss, leaving communities to wonder if they were being warned or simply watched. Our final journey takes us into a kind of folklore that hits one of humanity's most primal fears: losing children to the vast, unfeeling wilderness, often snatched away by mysterious, otherworldly beings. All across America, especially in places with deep forests and a strong mix of European immigrant traditions and Native American lore, stories persist of children who vanish into the woods. Not always by accident, but spirited away by fairies, goblins, trolls, or other hidden folk. These tales echo those ancient European changeling myths and act as powerful metaphors for the dangers lurking in the wild, and that fragile line between our civilized world and the untamed natural one. The heart of these legends usually involves a child, sometimes a baby left alone for a moment, sometimes an older kid who wanders too far off the path, being taken by these forest dwellers. In folklore that came over from Europe, these entities are often fey creatures. But why would they steal human children? The reasons given in the lore are varied and pretty unsettling. Some tales suggest the fairies steal beautiful human babies and leave a changeling in its place, a sickly, cranky fairy child, or even just an enchanted piece of wood. This changeling would often be endlessly hungry, bad-tempered, and seem strangely old, causing huge distress for the human parents. Medical historians now think many changeling stories might have been attempts to explain infant illnesses, developmental disabilities, or neurodivergence in children before we really understood those conditions. Other reasons for fey abduction are even darker. Some lore whispers that fairies have to pay a tithe to hell every 7 years and would rather use a human child or adult for this awful offering, instead of one of their own. The famous Ballad of Tam Lin is all about this. In other stories, human children are taken to be servants in the fairy realm, or simply because their beauty or innocence amuses the fae. Sometimes, the stolen children are treated well, even loved for a while, but they might eventually be forgotten or turned into slaves, forever longing for the human world they lost. Native American folklore also has plenty of accounts of spirits or beings who lure children or adults into the wilderness. For instance, among the Abenaki in New Hampshire and the Passamaquoddy in Maine, there are stories of mountain spirits or other beings stealing people. One tale tells of a beautiful Abenaki woman stolen by a solitary mountain spirit to be his bride. In the wetlands of New England, the Western Abenaki and Penobscot people spoke of spirits who lured children into swamps using lights, much like the will-o'-the-wisp from European tradition. Another Abenaki story describes children being stolen after eating fairy bread. These indigenous tales often stress the spiritual power of the landscape and the beings that live in it, acting as cautionary tales about respecting boundaries and the dangers of straying too far, physically or spiritually. The forests of Appalachia are especially packed with these kinds of stories. Given the region's isolated communities and the way European and Native American beliefs blended together, it's no shock that the woods there are seen as places where the veil between worlds is pretty thin. Tales of granny witches who might snatch away misbehaving children, or of strange, small folk living deep in the mountain hollers, were common. These stories helped keep communities tight and served as warnings to children to stay close to home and be careful around strangers or anything unusual. Think about that pervasive fear of being lost to the woods. This wasn't just about getting physically turned around. It carried this darker idea of being claimed by the wilderness itself or by its unseen inhabitants. Children, with their natural curiosity and less developed sense of danger, were seen as especially vulnerable. The stories often go into detail about the frantic searches, the parents' heartbreak, and that unsettling ambiguity of a child who just vanishes without a trace. A common theme in the many unexplained disappearances in American national parks and forests, which modern folklore sometimes blames on these very entities or on cryptids like Bigfoot. These narratives of stolen children reflect a deep societal anxiety about the wilderness as a place that could literally swallow up the young and innocent. The forest, in these tales, isn't just a passive backdrop. It's an active player, or at least a realm controlled by forces that operate outside human understanding and morality. The hidden folk are often portrayed as unpredictable, their motives impossible to figure out, their actions beyond any human appeal. The stories often end without any real resolution. The child is gone, maybe living in an enchanted realm, maybe not, leaving the family with a wound that never truly heals. These legends, while fictional, tap into a universal parental fear and the deeply unsettling idea that just beyond our perception lies a world that can, and sometimes does, reach out and take what is most precious to us. They serve as a stark reminder that the deep woods have always been places of both profound beauty and profound mystery, where the line between the real and the imagined can blur, and where the most innocent among us might just disappear into the trees, leaving behind only whispers and a chilling story. The American wilderness, so vast and mysterious, has been the canvas for some of our most lasting and unsettling folklore. From the ghostly White Doe of Roanoke, a symbol of innocence lost and magical transformation, to the insatiable hunger of the Wendigo, a terrifying embodiment of human desperation and things we dare not do. These legends speak to fears and fascinations buried deep within us. The Devil's Tramping Ground gives us a chilling vision of evil made real on the very earth, while the Mothman acts as a more modern omen, a winged messenger of disaster whose red eyes mirror our anxieties about the unexplained and the catastrophic. And those timeless tales of children stolen by the hidden folk of the forest? They tap into our most primal fear, the vulnerability of innocence when faced with a wilderness that is indifferent and sometimes seems downright predatory. These stories, born from the shadowed depths of America's lost woods, are more than just quaint campfire tales. They reflections of our complicated relationship with the natural world, a world that can be both stunningly beautiful and utterly terrifying, a source of life and a place of profound danger. They explore that thin veil between what's real and what's imagined, between what we know and what is completely unknowable. These narratives have shaped how we culturally see the forest, painting it as a realm where the ordinary rules of life can just be tossed aside, where logic gives way to legend, and where every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig could be the approach of something truly unbelievable. Why do these forest monsters and haunted places still grab us? It's their power to remind us that despite all our fancy technology and scientific breakthroughs, there are still corners of the world, and maybe corners of our own minds, that remain untamed, mysterious, and fully capable of stirring up genuine dread. They challenge our sense of safety and whisper that the world is far stranger and perhaps more dangerous than we often let ourselves believe. The folklore of American forest monsters serves as a potent psychological barrier, a collection of stories that, even if they're not real, can indeed keep you out of the woods, or at the very least, make you listen much more intently to the silence when you dare to step inside. What chilling legends from your own local forests keep you looking over your shoulder? Share your stories and theories in the comments below. We'd honestly love to hear them. If you've been captivated by these tales from the shadowed corners of America, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss our next journey into the heart of the unknown. Until then, tread carefully when you venture into the woods, and remember, you might not be alone.